Okay, we're warming up with a 5 and 3 Blitz game here. Yeah, let's play a Sicilian. Got an open Sicilian now. Attacking the e-pawn, so he defends it. And then knight to c6 is the classical Sicilian. a6 would be the Najdorf. So he plays this move, which is what you play often against the Najdorf. I could play the knight here, chase the bishop around. Yeah, I haven't played that in a long time. Let's try this. This diagonal open. The bishop needs to move. He doesn't move. Okay. I'll take that. Got a nice square here for my knight. He's got an open F file to attack on. Let's do this kind of setup. Yeah, maybe I should have moved my knight right away. That's such a good square for the knight. Maybe I should have just put it there. Well, now he's going to let me put it there. Yeah, let's go ahead and take a minute to do that. Because he could have traded my knight off at any time. That would have been annoying. Then he could get some counterplay by pushing those e-pawns. But if those e-pawns are blockaded, I don't see how he's going to make any progress against my king here. Of course, he's got a good knight too. A very good knight there. I don't think I'll ever be able to chase it off of that square. Well, can't say ever, but it won't be easy. So let's start by taking the b5 square, this square, away from his knights, and develop the bishop and bring the rook over. Just going to try and keep a clamp on the position for a while I get my pieces out and look for those opportunities. This knight to c5 might be an idea at the right time. Pawn to b5, or knight to c4, I mean. Yeah, so he's doubling on the f file. You know, if my knight is here and he can't trade it off easily, it's going to be hard for him to get anything against f7. But of course, if I play my knight to b5, c4, I keep saying the wrong thing. I'm going to play pawn b5 now. If I play my knight to c4, then it's no longer defending f7. Can I increase the pressure on this diagonal first? Diagonal towards his king. I do have a dark squared bishop. I could put it here and pin that pawn and move the knight away. So now I could bring my knight here and take that pawn, right? It's a bit dangerous. Maybe I'll just take with the queen. That way I'll maintain this pin on his rooks. And if he trades queens, then my king is not in so much danger, and I'll just be a pawn up. Also threatening to take here and win another pawn with the rook and bishop on c3. And his bishop on this diagonal is not looking at any targets here, so this pawn push here is not a big threat at the moment, anyway. So we decide to go there with the queen. Oh, he's defending this pawn. I can still take this one. And as I said, I think I will take with the queen, see if he's tempted to trade queens here. If he doesn't trade queens, actually, I could take his queen and then take another pawn. He's forcing me to do that. Ah, but he gets this pawn with check. Okay, that's true. So let's calculate this. I take the queen, he takes here check. I move my king, he takes back, and then I have to save my rook. Seems like that is the only solution. Oh, he didn't, he took back immediately. Maybe, no, he could have still taken there with check. Very mysterious. Okay, let's defend that pawn then. Yeah, I really think he could have thrown in knight takes pawn check. I have to move my king. I can't attack his knight in any way. Then he takes the queen. Then I have to move my rook, which is hanging. Would have been better for white than what he played. Now his, yeah, his b pawn was hanging and he couldn't defend it, so he had to block with c3. So what now? He does have a loose knight here. So I'm creating sort of a pin, kind of a pin on this knight. My knight's in the way, so he could move that knight right away. But I'm going to move my knight out of the way next. Put it back on e5. Going to move the knight back here. And then after that, this knight will be pinned because this knight is loose here. Of course, he could move this knight too. Yeah, he does that. That makes sense. I think I don't want to trade. I think I will keep my knight on. I can lift my rook to c5 and put pressure on this knight. It's very convenient that he doesn't have a dark squared bishop. Also, I'm threatening the fork. I just noticed that knight to knight d3 is forking the two rooks. And he puts his knight back. Okay, let's go for the fork. Okay, then let's put pressure on this knight. I guess I'm not threatening to win a pawn because his bishop here. Oh, and of course, the knight can take my rook. That was silly. I was thinking, I had planned out that move when the knight wasn't there, and I forgot to take into account that his his position had changed. Okay, so he's going to get a doubling of my pawns here. But looks like I'll be able to activate my rook, maybe. I don't know, maybe we'll go into an endgame here. He can oppose the rook. I should trade, probably. Yeah, he does it. And then we will have... I'll be a pawn up in the endgame, but my pawn is this doubled pawn. So yeah, it looks like I wasted a chance to win a game here. Let's put this bishop on a good square and activate my king. I'm not conceding this yet. Let's bring my king over. Just got to keep an eye on where my pawns are. The ones especially that his bishop can attack. Unpin. Now I can kick his bishop back. I went back voluntarily. So my idea here, I think I will play this first. Or not. I guess he could push. and then get his bishop on this square. The problem is if I move my king here, so I want to defend my b pawn so I can push my a pawn and then go b5. If I just go b4 immediately, then his bishop will take here. So that's my problem. Maybe it's okay. I go b4. If he takes here, I will take. He takes, then I take this one. That's what I wanted, and then I'll get back. My bishop gets to here with check, but he will have an outside passed pawn. It's giving up a lot. Yeah, let's try it. Might be interesting. And anyway, I don't have any other way to make progress that I see. If he just pushes, okay, he gave up his chance of having an outside passed pawn there. So he goes this way. So this is still hanging. He can take that, huh? Yeah, it looks like it's all just going to disappear here pretty soon. He could have come forward there. Yeah, I'm going to offer a draw here in a minute. There's nothing left in this position that I can see. Well, I won the exchange and then gave it back for no reason, so it's a fitting punishment that I should get a draw here. Yeah, let's offer the draw. He accepted. Yeah, that's about it. Can't do much with that position. Here, let's get a rapid game now. Hopefully that's enough of a warm-up. The lesson is not to hang your rook, or not to give back the exchange unthinkingly. You can give back the exchange, but you want to get something, some benefit for it. So we'll try and get a rapid game. Nice, taking some time. There he goes. Yeah, usually it's pretty quick. Oh, I got someone at the same level here, and we had a previous draw. Let's see if we can get a decisive result this time. He goes with f4. Okay, I'll play kind of a reverse Dutch setup. There is this wacky gambit line, but in a slow game, I think I'll stay away from it. I'll get the bishop outside the pawn chain. Yeah, so he's got a, this would be called a Leningrad Dutch if he had played this. If he had played this with the colors reversed. So yeah, that was my intent, was just to trade off that knight. Looks like he opened up the G file here, so maybe he's going to castle on the queen side. He opens up this diagonal. I guess just in time. He's opening up that diagonal, and he has time to put the bishop here to block it, so I didn't have a great discovery. But now he will always have to calculate the discovered attacks on this bishop. His bishop is loose, mine is defended. So whenever I move the knight, you'll have to take into account this is hanging too. So he can't put his queen, for example, on some dark squares here. Here or here. Knight here, queen moves, bishop takes, and then I also win the rook there. Is he going to give up the exchange here? that would be an unlikely way to play the game, but maybe he will. I'm going to keep my knights, so I'm going to kick that bishop and then develop my knight. And let's see, he's not castling on the king side, and he's not able to castle on the queen side just yet, so I should break in the center, it looks like. Let's set up this c5 pawn push here. Push his bishop back some more. Well, his bishop will go to this diagonal. And we'll open up the d file. I could just take his bishop. That would lead to a lot of trades. We both played this too fast. It's a very complicated position, and I was still moving a little too quickly there. So he decides to break in the center. Maybe he's trying to straighten out his pawn structure. But I can attack his bishop first. If he attacks my knight, I can place it over here. It's fine. So let's do that. Let's attack his bishop. Yeah, I thought he might push. So I could take his bishop. He takes my knight. I take back. He could trade bishops, then his rook is hanging and his bishop is hanging, so that is not good. He will... Oh no, the bishop is... I took the bishop. I take the bishop, he takes the knight. I take back. I could throw in pawn takes queen. Pawn takes bishop here attacking... Pawn takes pawn attacking the queen. Forking the queen and the knight. That would allow him, yeah, he couldn't continue because taking the queen is too strong. So he would take that pawn, then I could take here. I think this is good for me. And at least I spent a little time thinking about it. So here we are. I could just take the pawn. That would be okay. When he trades, if he trades, I'll take back with the queen, and this will be loose. He can bring his knight out to defend. If he doesn't trade, he has to defend the bishop, and then I can still take here. Or I could just take here first. Queen takes. When the queen takes, it hits my knight, so I don't want to take there first. I want to take here first. That's why you calculate. My knight is loose here. I'm going to put the rook on c8 pretty soon. But this gains a tempo. If he doesn't trade, I take the bishop. If he does trade, I'm attacking the rook. So he has to play a move like that. Now I can take here. And put a rook here. Opposite his queen, I have a pawn that I could take here, but it's a doubled pawn that's not really going anywhere. But maybe I should take it because it's doing a good job here. My queen on this square will be able to threaten his king. And pawn was defending these squares here. So he can take or push. Both are interesting. Pushing is interesting because it's threats, sets up mate threats against my king on g7. Taking is interesting because it opens up the h file, but that will also open up the f file for me. If I was white, I would probably castle in this position. He doesn't believe in castling. So I think that's a big mistake because I have already been thinking about this move, knight to knight to d4. Hits the queen, hits this pawn. What can he do? He can drop his queen back here or put it here, defending the pawn. Okay, knight here, queen here. What do I do then? I could bring the knight back here so that the queen has access to this square. Yeah, I think this is a good idea. So he's lifted his rook up. I guess that means that he can play his rook to g1. And he probably will. I bet I can see that coming. So the question is, can he really break through here? Or have I got this covered? Okay, if I push this pawn forward, his knight gets this square. If I push my d pawn forward, his knight can come to e4. Looking at the f6 square and this square. So I don't want to allow that. I don't want his knight in on the game. What can I do here? I want to activate my rooks. This might be a time to sack the exchange. Well, here's something. If I put my knight on h6, I could also bring it out to g5. No, I can't. His king will take it. His king will take it. Okay, I'm going to prepare a second line defense and also prepare to swing this other rook over. I want to push the queenside pawns and chase his knight off of this square. He wants to chase my queen away. That makes sense. Let's see, so if I go here and he takes, then that exposes an attack on my queen, but actually it's a pin. So if he takes, I will take his rook. He could take again. I'll take back. My knight is blocking the queen, so I don't think I get mated there. I have to take with the king, right? He takes, I take the rook. Takes again, I'm in check. It's a double check. The pawn is checking me and his rook is checking me, so I have to take with the king. So if his queen and his rook were coordinating here, I'd be in trouble, but his queen is blocked by my knight. Bat Rambo has started to think. What did he take? He took a pawn, hitting my knight. So what's the idea here? I will take hitting my rook. I take his sacrifice. And then he takes this knight. And if I try and pin, he can move the knight with check. Oh, that's good. So, where should I put the rook then? I don't want to give up this knight, is the thing. And the check here looks dangerous. If I move my king to the side, I hate to do that because that's pins. That'll set up this pin, this horrible pin on the H-file. Also, the queen check here. I'm guarding the queen checks. That's nice. Okay, but if I move my king, I'll lose the rook. So probably I need to move the rook. If I'm not going to take the knight, I should move the rook. So let's look at this. Pawn takes knight. Queen takes knight. He's a pawn up, and his queen is here attacking. I have a pawn here. And I have a check here. Okay. We will fall for his trap. Sometimes you just have to fall into your opponent's plans. Yeah, so that blocks the G file a little bit, but not enough. So he can sacrifice or just take directly on G6. If I defend G6 with the queen, say rook defends queen, queen indirectly defends G6. Pawn takes, rook takes, pawn takes, queen takes, queen takes. Might be sufficient. Let's try it. It's a tricky, tricky position. So yeah, he's got lots of time to think now and figure this out. Oh, he just takes a pawn. Okay. That's fine then, isn't it? Isn't that just fine? This pawn is pinned. So what is it? It is now actually a pawn up for me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But his king is in the middle, mine is on the side. That's both good and bad. Anyway, now if he takes the pawn, I see. His idea is now he can take the pawn because of the pin here. I would have to take this way. But I could, if I defend it with the rook, pawn takes, rook takes. Rook takes, queen takes. Let's try it. If he ever pushes the pawn forward, then the pressure on G6 is relieved, and then I'll put my queen on the dark square diagonal to keep him from mating me here. Maybe set up a queen trade on the... I probably want to do that anyway, set up a queen trade on this square. maybe by moving my rook over. Okay, but he's going for the trades now. Let's see how this works. His rook is pinned, so we're going to get one more trade in here at least. And then I'll have some checks against his king. Aha. He says he doesn't want the trade. Okay, I think I still need to stay in touch with this rook, and my queen needs to stay in touch with this rook. I can move this other rook around, right? If he takes, I can take with the pawn. So actually, I technically don't need my queen there. And it might be useful to get my queen on a dark square here. And I have a check here and potentially a check here, as I was talking about, maybe rook to e8. Rook e8 to set up the check here. Be an idea. Okay, so let's get rid of the arrow. So I have to take with this pawn. And that was check. I mean, I have a check here against his king. But didn't have time to play that, and I'm not sure what it would have done. But anyway, with my queen on the dark square diagonal, now I can just lift my king up to g7, bring the rook over. And that should be good for me, right? Just get rid of the last pieces or get rid of the pressure on my king. His king is still exposed and I'm still a pawn up. Yeah, I have to defend that pawn, but I can defend it by lifting my king here and unpinning here. So yeah, next step is to activate my rook. On the H file, I could activate the rook here or over here. Those are a couple places it might go. There, okay. Attacking my pawn, hitting my rook. So I could just take his pawn. He might be looking to play an endgame here. My rook is defended though, so I could move my pawn forward. I think. Now I can attack either of those two pawns, but I'm also attacking his pawn, so. And the checks. The check here, if the king goes to the h file, the rook can go to h8 with check. And that might be mate in short order, but probably if I check him, he will come forward to f4. Check here, king f4. Then what? Well, yeah, if his queen gives up some of these squares, then I might be able to get something going, but depends on where he puts his queen. Puts it there, yeah. So now let's think about this. Check here. The king goes to the h file. I'll bring the rook over with check. The king comes out here. I have a check here. See, if I take a pawn, he takes a pawn. Let's do the checks first, see if I can get something. Yeah, so now f6 threatens mate. Threatens queen here, mate. Or I could check here. If I play f6, he can check here. I can lift my rook up, and he has to move his queen. He can stay on this diagonal. Just taking the pawn also protects against the mate, doesn't it? Pretty dangerous for his king to be running around like that, though. And I have time to try and figure something out here. Yeah, he just goes back. So I could have a draw by repetition. I could push this pawn forward. Here's another way to threaten a mate, isn't there? If I put the rook here, takes the pawn, I give the check, comes out here. I don't have this check once again. Queen is not on the right square. Okay, looks like we'll trade a couple pawns here. I will defend my light squared pawn. He takes a pawn, I take a pawn. If he goes for the check here, I can trade. So he takes my A pawn, I take his B pawn. Keep a balance of pawns over here on this side of the board. These endgames with heavy pieces are very difficult. It's if my king is more sheltered than his, it may be to my advantage, but yeah, hard to prove, huh? may have to settle for a draw here. He takes with the rook. If he takes with the queen, I take this pawn and I stay pawn up. Yeah, so he takes with the rook. So I have this check, and the king has to go somewhere. He has to go to the F file. If he goes to the H file, that looks dangerous. I'll have the check, and yeah, he can't even block. So that's the only move. So I have the pawn forward with check, but he can take it. He can take it. So queen here, check. Drive the king out into the open. Okay, so I get to move my rook with check finally. Get that on an open file. So he's pushed over to the D file somewhere. Oh, he could block. No, he can't block. My queen is guarding that square, so he can't block with the rook. So most places, well, if he goes here, I can check and take the pawn. So he goes there. So let's look at this, though. Can he even defend that pawn? If I check here, where's he going? He has to go to the C file. Oh, I can't check there. Okay, let's go here. That's the way to lose the game, right? Let's go here. Threaten the pawn. See if he finds a way to defend it. Also coordinating my queen and rook. Nice to have them coordinated. He might be able to interpose his rook here. Rook takes, rook here, rook takes, queen takes, because he takes with check, king takes. Then he's got a passed pawn over here. So I can't actually allow the trades. But if he plays his rook here, I can move my rook with check first, then move my queen. I'll move my queen with check first. Hard to say. Both can move with check. With his exposed king, that's one of the handy things about having the exposed king. I found a way to defend. Okay, now I can continue driving his king. His his rook is loose there. Ah, that works. Darn, that works. Because the check here, he can block with the rook. Oh man, I was too clever for my own good. Check here, he blocks with the rook. Check here, king moves. Let's try it. So my last hope is to get some kind of perpetual here, but it looks like he turned the tables there. Hard to overcome a mistake like that. Yeah, I was thinking too hard about what I could do and not thinking enough about what he could do. So I guess I had to check with the queen here. this check. But he could block with the rook. Anyway, put his king there. What can I do? Yeah, so now he can block. Yeah, he came back forward, so that gives him more ways to block the check. Now, if I come here and check again, he can block with the queen, which will be a check, and then I'm in trouble. I have to trade queens, and I'm just down a rook. If I block here, if I check here, he'll block with the rook. Yeah, I'm going to resign. So anyway, that was a good game. Hope you guys enjoyed this session, and I'll see you next time. Bye.